to another episode of the Teralon Talks podcast. I will be your host, Perry Perkins, and today we've got on Toby Harris, who has worked with us quite frequently the last few months on a couple of really big projects. One being with a big law firm here in London, and then another, a wine decanter company called Eto. And yeah, he's worked with us on both of those projects as our DOP cinematographer.
That's right.
And yeah, so we thought we'd bring him on the podcast here today just to talk to you a bit about those projects and how he's gone from, you know, being a cinematographer and into the whole, I guess, making that a jump into a full-time freelance director of photography, all that jazz. So
all that jazz. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jazz. Just a quick one, I guess, for those who don't know me. My name is Toby, and I've been working in the film industry for about 15 years. And I started at film school and did a 3-year degree, and kind of started jumping into the industry in South Africa is where I started. And I then moved to London. I'm just going to shortchange it. Moved to London about 5 years ago, and subsequently just started building a career on the side. And here we are today. And obviously,
you grew up in South Africa, correct?
I did. Yeah.
You didn't just go to film school there?
No.
Okay.
I was born and raised, actually. I've families from the UK, but I was the only one. So I born there, raised there, and just thought that the UK would be a great place to continue my craft and continue my learning and experience and take it to new heights. So, my wife and I decided to make the jump, and haven't looked back since.
5 years now.
Yeah, 5 years. Just time flies. Can't actually believe that, to be honest. But 5 years, and it's quite a transition. People don't think sometimes it's going to be as big as it is, but obviously, it's a big jump. But I think in the industry, it was a bigger jump because I didn't have any contacts here, and my wife didn't have any contacts here either. So we moved over kind of not knowing kind of where we would go once we got here. You make some phone calls, or you send some emails, or you get in touch with people on social media. But there's
an industry where you definitely need those connects as well. It's always the first it's who you know, and then it's what you know.
It's always about who you know. The thing is, you can be the most talented guy, and you can have the greatest knowledge, and you can be a nice guy, but if you don't have the connections, and it's invariably going to be directors and producers who are people that you want to build up a relationship with, build up a friendship with, and have a good understanding. You're always going to be a team player, and you're not going to let the side down, and they know you've got the skills to back everything up, by hiring you every time. And I think that's critical, because if you don't have those, you're not going to keep moving forward in your career.
Right. So how about because you went to film school in South Africa, got your degrees, certifications there. What was the big difference between South African film, like the network there, versus in the UK?
Well, firstly, the UK is equivalent. It's international. So, you've got people from all over the world who are coming to work here and live here and try and make it big. So, you're not just dealing with hundreds of people coming out of film schools, or hundreds of people going into gear houses and starting out as runners and so on and so forth, and camera trainees in the industry. You've got people who are coming from all over the world: Europe, Australia, New Zealand, the US, South Africa, Canada. It's global. And so, on that level, it's a much, much bigger deal in that regard, because it's just it's a much bigger industry. It's much more established. And that's nothing, of course, against South Africa. South Africa's gone through its ups and downs with its industry, but they had a really big industry in the 80s, I think into the 90s, and then budgets and things kind of took a bit of a dive, and when I got into the industry, it was kind of trying to bounce back. It's been a bit of a difficult transition, I think, as well, in the last sort of 15, 20 years. But it's not to say that the skills aren't there. that the people that I studied with, for example, or the people that I've worked with in South Africa are as skilled or talented as anyone pretty much in the rest of the world. I think the difference is that it's a pool of much smaller people who are on that level. Whereas here in the UK, you're ultra competitive, and you really are fighting against award-winning cinematographers, people who have shot big feature films and drama series and so on, and you're trying to move up into their sphere, into their position as well. And it's a great inspiration. It can be intimidating especially when you first start, I think, because you feel like you're so far away from where you want to be. But I mean, that's the point of the industry, is you just put your head down and keep moving, and things will happen.
That's a bit of an industry as well, I think, especially people in your career path, as far as like directors, director of photography, cinematographers, those guys at the top ends of films. I think it's hard for them to ever feel like they've reached the top, as far as there's always new stuff coming out, always new ways to shoot things, always something else to learn, always someone else who's one up to them, or like I could do that, I could do this better.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's always people in that position. They're always striving for more, I guess, and there's always somewhere else to go, which makes it a very interesting career path, I think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I have to say that you can think that you've reached a certain level of, you've shot a feature film with a certain budget, or you started working on certain commercials or music videos and things, and you think, okay, I've got to that. That's that sort of, I'm at the top of that mountain or that hill. But then you look up and you've still got another massive peak to climb, and it feels like every time you reach the top of that peak, there's another peak in front of you. So I think, without making it sound like you're never going to reach the top, I think it does get to a point where I think there isn't necessarily something further. There's just different projects. I think if you're, I'll give an example. I think if you're someone like Greg Fraser or Roger Deakins or Emmanuel Lubezki or something like that, I think you've proven your craft. You're a master at your craft. I don't think there's anything really left for you to prove. There'll always be someone below you who will try and challenge you, or think that they can do something better because maybe they do things a certain way that someone coming up through film school or has been in the industry but maybe hasn't had the same opportunities will think, oh, I can do something different or better or whatever. But that's the beauty about it. It's subjective. Art is subjective.
It's very subjective.
Yeah.
I think you said it well there. I think nothing. You can get to the point where there's nothing left to prove, but it doesn't mean there's not stuff you can learn and take away and
absolutely
achieve something else. And yeah, you could be at the top of that mountain, but it doesn't mean you can't keep trudging on. I
mean, you can be. I'll give an example where it's Conrad Hall. So Conrad Hall, he shot American Beauty, amongst many other. He had about a 50-year career in the US as a cinematographer, and he was still learning even when he shot American Beauty. And he's a genius DP. Like honestly, you put him in a block and genius. He had never storyboarded before. So, the director, I think it was Sam, for American Beauty, he storyboards everything. Comes from a commercial background. And for Conrad Hall, it was like, okay, well, this is new, but I'm going to go with it. And I mean, if you've ever watched that film, for example, it's beautiful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And, his final film was Road to Perdition, Tom Hanks, which was about 2002, I think. And he passed away, I think, a week or so before the premiere, if memory serves me correctly. So he never got to watch the film actually come out, but he was still learning at the age of 89 when he passed away. So you never stop learning and growing. That's absolutely in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, and those kind of people, like, they love their craft so much. Like, they don't stop at doing it until they physically can't, right? You see all of these stalwart, like, directors out there, and they're still doing it, and they always will, because they can't help it. Like, they have to create, and they have to do it. And that kind of passion, I mean, that's why their films are so great, because they put everything they have into them.
Very true.
Yeah, so talking about distinction, you came out of school as officially a cinematographer. I guess
Yeah.
for those people out there that aren't completely surrounded by the industry, what is the difference? If you could explain between a cinematographer, a director of photography.
I mean, I guess a director of photography and cinematographer are kind of for me, they're kind of the same thing. I think when you call yourself a cinematographer, I think you're not someone who's I know there's this huge online thing about videographer versus cinematographer and
Right.
so on and so forth, and people going around calling themselves a DOP, which is obviously the short for director of photography, and or a DP in the US. And you know, the difference, I think, when you call yourself a cinematographer, you've shot feature films and you've shot drama series. I think that's a distinction that, well, that's kind of what I was brought up on.
Cinematographer is a much more professional level, I suppose.
Yeah. It's kind of it's a much more considered title. I think videographer carries a much broader scope of kind of things that you would end up doing, because videographers can do sound and do edit, and they do a lot of run and gun stuff and live events and things like that. Whereas a cinematographer is specializing usually in narrative, or obviously music videos and commercials are also part of that world, and documentaries. But I think it's a higher level of what you've achieved, and I think you have to be very serious about knowing that you can call yourself a cinematographer. I don't think just anyone can go around and be like, I'm a DOP. I think it just gets bandied about far too quickly. You can be a camera operator and a videographer and so on and so forth, and it's not to take away from those guys, because I think if you're a videographer, you are skilled at many different things, which, if you're a cinematographer, you've probably focused on one thing, which is generally what I've done. I didn't go and do editing on the side. I didn't go and do sound jobs. I didn't do other things as, other technical skills and things. I focus specifically on being the best, I would call it lighting cameraman, if you want, that you could be. And I think that's the distinction of me. It's a very specialized kind of part of the industry or skill set that you've acquired when you can call yourself cinematographer.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also a bit of a title that I guess you more have to earn, rather than, I guess, not to knock the term at all, but like anyone who goes and picks up a camera and learns that, like, you can pick up a consumer A7S3 or whatever, which is what a lot of people have,
absolutely,
and call themselves a videographer. And of course they can be at any, and that varies at many skill levels, right? But anyone who you're hiring a cinematographer is going to be at quite a high level, and it will have trained specifically in that. So I think, yeah, you nailed it there. As a videographer is definitely a much more wider scope, and I guess an easier barrier of entry too, as well.
Yeah, it is these days. It's an amazing thing that we have in the industry because of things like DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, and brands like Blackmagic, who have really flipped camera side on its head. To get into the industry in the past, you would have to start on maybe small digital cameras where you're not really doing the big jobs, or you'd be working on film. And then obviously with the rise and advent of digital, you've got people like Red who broke barriers and really forged ahead and forced, I think, to me, have forced ARRI to, I guess companies like Red have forced ARRI to maintain their levels of standard through digital, and really force them to raise their game in a way from film. I think ARRI are the leading guys. For me, I have the utmost respect for guys at ARRI, what they've achieved with all the digital cameras and their lenses and so on and so forth. I think they're still industry standard, but it's great when you see companies like Red, like Blackmagic, who open up doors for young cinematographers and people who would like to try something different. And I think that's very important when you've got youngsters who are coming up and they just want to get their hands on a camera. And I think the fact that you can have that instant gratification in a way, you can get a cheap DSLR for £500-600 or something, and you start on shooting on that. And that's a great way for you to kind of get some short films, shoot some music videos with your mates, that kind of thing, and gain the experience that you need.
Yeah, definitely. Get your feet wet. Get in there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we don't need to dive into all the different ways to get into cinematography, but I think I'd like to touch just a bit on your experience and how the path that you took. 'Cause you did go a bit more the traditional sense, which I think there's a lot of argument there these days about whether you should go to film school or not go to film school.
Yeah.
But you're on the side that you did go to film school and came out as a cinematographer. So yeah, just a bit about why did you choose to take that path, and how did you get to being director of photography today?
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it nice and short, but basically, I didn't actually know what I want to do with my life, to be honest. I was stuck in a place where I studied photography and I'd worked in photographic shops, and I knew I loved photography. And I obviously loved films, but I didn't know that I wanted to be a filmmaker at that point. And I was doing some other jobs, working around, kind of not really sure with my life where I was going. And then I actually just, an advert. We found an advert that the film school was advertising, and I was like, I went for an open day, and I fell in love with it immediately. I was like, yes, I can see myself doing that. So I quit my job. I'd been working for 5 years. I quit my job after high school. I was working 5 years after high school. I quit my job and went back to study. And I actually went to film school to be a director and a writer, and I fell in love with being behind the camera. I fell in love with being the first guy who sees the image, who gets to be really up close to the actors, and who gets to be involved in the creative process, lighting, camera movement, everything else that comes with it. And I think I didn't actually know that was the best path. I just, it was kind of, this has kind of happened for me. And I guess when you, only much later do you realize, okay, well, it worked out. Or was it the correct path for me? Well, I guess it must have been, because, I didn't choose a different path. I could have gone other ways. But for me, it did work out. But that's not to say that obviously there aren't other avenues, that we can talk about. But we built up relationships with directors and producers when we were at film school. And, we took that into the industry, and subsequently have worked with those directors, producers, and or other producers and directors who knew them, because you've got, you build on a wider network. And as soon as your network expands and expands and expands, you've just got so much more scope for opportunity for work. So for me, I guess that's the big plus point about going to film school is, you're all studying together and you're all wanting to learn the same craft, or learning filmmaking itself. And, you kind of start to align with directors or producers who kind of want to do the same thing and have the similar visions. And then you take it from there. And obviously, it's up to you to kind of build those relationships and, contact people when you're in the industry, because it doesn't just come to you. I think that's what a lot of young people, they'll leave film school and they just think, okay, I've got the degree. It's just going to start happening. Work's just going to start pouring through the door.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
And it just doesn't happen like that. So, you really have to be proactive. You've got to go outside and you've got to market yourself. You are the product, and you've got to market yourself to people. And the only way to do that is to constantly shoot and learn and make better projects and build relationships with people. And that's how you're going to get to where you want to get to.
Amazing. So yeah, you took the film school route. Did any of that have to do with just the fact that you were in South Africa? And you think that was, if you had been in the UK instead, 'cause a lot of our listeners are probably in the UK, there are a lot of options as far as what film schools, do you go to film school? Do you just dive in to the industry and try to get hands-on experience and move up from there? Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in South Africa when I was at film school, I think it was less of a thing to work at a gear house and to move into the industry. I think it's an easier path. So if you started at an equipment rental house, it's an easier path in the UK. If you're working at Panavision or Arri or some of the other big names, I mentioned too many, but they know who they are. And if you start through there in the UK, it's a great way to build relationships and to learn the equipment. And if you spend 2, 3, 4 years doing that kind of thing, depending on how much you're learning and how confident you feel on getting onto film sets, what you might try and do is you might try and put yourself out there as getting onto film shoots while you're working there. I know there are some rental houses which do actually provide crew for production houses. And so it becomes like an all-in-one in-house kind of thing. They're like, yes, we can provide camera operators, DP, Steadicam, and here's our equipment list as well. And obviously for production houses, that's a very attractive thing for them because it puts everything under one umbrella, and you say, okay, great, I don't have to worry about that stuff coming from different places. And in South Africa, that definitely wasn't so much of an opportunity. I think it was more starting out as a trainee, which is kind of what you do a lot here, a runner or a camera trainee or any of that kind of thing. And you've got to start at the bottom. You can't just think, even if you've got a degree as a cinematographer or director or whatever it is, you can't just think, I'm just going to dive straight in. I'm going to start shooting big feature films and TV series and so on. It just doesn't work like that. And I know some guys who did get quite lucky after film school. Guys who studied 4 or 5 years ahead of me who just went out and they didn't go through the traditional routes. I was a film loader. So I do 16 and 35 mm loading film. I stayed out of film school, and I went my way into focus pulling, and spent about 5 years or so in focus pulling, and then moved up into camera operating, and then sort of started doing more DP work on the higher level. Obviously, I was shooting smaller projects throughout while I was loading and focus pulling stuff. But in order to get to the top, I went more the traditional route, because you build relationships with your DOPs, with your focus pullers, with your camera operators. And that's how you kind of find your path to the top on the bigger shoots. Anyway.
Okay. No, that's really interesting, actually. I think the other thing you keep mentioning as well is I don't think a lot of people realize being a DOP, a cinematographer, any of those aspects, you're the one in charge of how the picture looks in the end, right?
Absolutely.
So obviously you have all these processes afterwards with editing and all that stuff. You have your pre-production. But on the day, actually shooting, getting the shot, it's up to you. And you have your actual director overlooking everything, but you're the next man up. You're second in charge pretty much the entire time.
Sort of.
I think on bigger sets, it's up there.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people also don't realize is that lighting is very much involved. You're not just operating the camera. You're not just looking at the camera and the angles. You're also in charge of how, I guess, you want that lighting to look.
Absolutely.
Can you explain a bit just about how important that is and how much, I guess, you spend, how much time you spend, how important that is to your film look throughout the day as well?
Yeah, lighting is everything for a cinematographer. It literally is, the world that you're creating for the director's vision. Which is why the relationship's so important with the director, and obviously very important to have that relationship with an art director as well, production designer, that kind of thing, even down to makeup and wardrobe, because everything that you light has an impact on the colors and the tonal values, and everything that you're looking to achieve, is impacted by what someone could be wearing or the makeup that they have on their face. What color what color are the cheeks going to be? Do I need to adjust that? Is it going to make their cheeks too red because we're going for a bit of a punchy red look on the cheeks, for example, or is it going to do something with the eyes? So it literally can come down to all the pre-production stuff that you go through on the bigger shoots is very, very important. Those relationships are critical, and it's just because you want the whole thing to be uniform. You want everyone to be on the same page and know that your vision at the end, which is the director's vision, really, at the end of the day, they've created a world and they want to see it through, whether it's on their heads, on the page, whatever it is. And you've got to get that out onto celluloid, onto screen. And, that lighting is a huge part, obviously, because, you are always in a different environment. And every day, depending on where the light is, light bounces and reflects off every surface. And you've got to take that into consideration. You've got to think about what color your skin tone is. You've got to think about, are you going for a certain look? There's a million different lighting choices now with the advent of LED. You've got Cobb LED lights, which is a great replacement in a way for small scale HMIs and tungsten source lights. And obviously, very useful to have on sets if you don't have the bigger budget and you don't have big scissor lifts outside your windows and things like that. Sometimes you've got other options now, which is great to use. But it's critical for me to sit down and think, how is this going to look for the story? And story, no matter what you're shooting, is king. So cinematography doesn't have to be beautiful, but it has to tell the story. That's the most important thing. It can be beautiful, but it can also be ugly beautiful or beautifully ugly. And if it tells the story, then you've got the point across, you've got the scene, you've got the mood, and ultimately you'll have a happy director and a happy producer.
No, that's great. That's great. So what is your style then? Do you have a style, or do you try and stay flexible?
Yeah, it's funny. I think every cinematographer sort of does find a bit of a style, but it's molded by what you see and what you've studied and what you've learned over the years as well. So you'll always have a certain way of lighting that you'll kind of lean towards based on both what you've seen and what you've then tried to achieve. Often, you'll talk to other cinematographers and you'll see how they do things, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I've never tried that. Maybe, that's a new technique. And you'll see if you can put that into the next shoot. If it's valid, if it's something that, would work for a certain scene or scenario. I don't know if I have a lighting style, to be honest. I think I really like to light and try and make it look as naturalistic as possible. I think for me, I don't really like super stylized lighting unless the project demands it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of youngsters these days will look at things and be like, oh, you're going to try and throw as much color and whatever into every frame. And just because that's kind of become a thing with the advent of RGB LEDs, you can kind of suddenly throw in a light that you can gel into 100 different colors, or whatever it is. It's, it's infinite possibilities in a way. And I think for me, it's not about just trying to always do something that's really out there. I think I like my things to feel like it's almost not really that lit. I want it to feel like people are kind of just happen to be there, but it looks pretty, if that makes sense, without looking like I've gone and banged a whole bunch of lights in there and trying to light a set. For me, that's important. I think it's the mark for me of a good cinematographer. I think where you feel like you haven't forced the audience or the viewer to notice your lighting too much, because that detracts from the story. It must feel natural for the scene and for the actors. That's the most important thing.
You don't want it to seem like it has been lit. You just want it to look like it is what it is. Like it's supposed to be what it is. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and makes sense.
If I'm doing a scene of the two of us on the couch, I'm not just going to suddenly bring in a whole bunch of colorful lights or smash a huge light in the background and have some moving things. Yeah, I know exactly. But I think I think it's very important that you have a good understanding of what works and what doesn't work, and that kind of just really comes with experience. That's not just something you just learn overnight. Like we talk about that, you've got cinematographers who've been doing it for 30, 40 years, and every picture that they shoot, every TV series that they shoot, they'll learn something new. And, their style, which is why I say I don't know if I have a style, is because your style evolves over time. It evolves with technology, it evolves with how you view life. And I mean, it literally comes down to, you being older or having a family or simple things like that will actually make a difference to how you view things through maybe younger eyes. Or let's say you grow up in New York City, the way you view light is going to be different to the way if you grow up in California or London or Tokyo. I think it's really important, your environment that you grow up in. Usually it kind of, I wouldn't say it forces your hand, but it definitely pushes you into a certain lighting style and a certain way that you see the world. That's, yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, there's a reason films out of all those different regions look very aesthetically different, right?
Absolutely.
They grow up in a different environment, and that's just how they do things. And that's how they learn. So when you take someone from there and put them in a different environment, like it's noticeable, and they just do things a different way. But it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just different. And it's most of the time it's really cool. Yeah, I guess maybe not style, but more preference. Shooting wise, we've been talking about lighting, but like as far as cameras and stuff you use, do you have a preference on what you use and how you, I guess, go about filming scenes?
I think again, it comes down to every project is different. So if a director comes to me and says, I really wanted to shoot on anamorphic lenses, I haven't shot on anamorphic lenses. I don't just want to shoot on anamorphic lenses because you want to. It must feel right for what we're shooting. And I did a shoot last year for a property company, which was great, and was a commercial, and really came out quite nicely actually, with a little girl, and with the whole idea was like Goldilocks. She goes into the house that her parents are looking at to see if they move in, and the whole thing carries the camera. It's from her perspective as we go through the different rooms, and she sees the house from her perspective, and the viewer sees it from her perspective, and she's trying to find what room is right for her. And it's these different experiences that she's suddenly going into. She will have a little bit of a dream sequence, and she'll have a little bit of, so it's her having these things inside her head go off, and in the end, she gets something that's just right. The one room is too bright, the one room is too wet, or the one room is too something. And then she kind of finds the thing at the end. And, they had always, the production company they worked with on that, they would always wanted to shoot on anamorphic lenses. And I've been wanting to shoot on anamorphic for quite a long time. I hadn't had too much experience DPing with them. And for me, the project worked that we could shoot on anamorphic. And, I think that's important, that whatever it is that you're looking to shoot on, it's got to feel right. Again, it's not just, we're just going to do that because. I think it's important that you understand the reasons why you're doing what you're doing. I think these days it's less about cameras, because I think there's so many good cameras on the market. If you look at all the manufacturers, you've got Sony, you've got Panasonic, you've got Canon, you've got Arri, obviously, you've got Red, Panavision, there's just such a plethora of options out there. It's not really about cameras, because they can most of them can shoot really, really good imagery. It's about lighting, again, come back to that. And it's about lenses and filters and things like that you can use to tell your story a little bit differently from the way someone else would tell it. Because we can all just put a camera down in one place. But you'll find that if you gave a camera to 10 cinematographers and told them to light a scene and told them to put a camera and shoot the scene, you'd probably get 10 different results. And
it's all going to look very different.
It's all going to, even if it's subtle differences. There'll be something. It might just be the way suddenly someone's decided they want to shoot from a low angle, and someone else hasn't thought of that, and that's just the way they interpret something. And it's not that it's right or wrong. It just might be something that feels better or works well for the scene, and seems to them to tell the story better. And I guess where subjective becomes a little bit less subjective is when you find that the majority of the audience agrees with you, with your choices. And that's when you know that you feel like you've made the right choices, because we, as an artist, you constantly are questioning yourself, whether you're in pre-production, whether you're on set shooting, you have 100 things running through your head, and you're questioning yourself and everything that you're doing at the same time. Is it right? Do I need to add something? Do I need to take something away? What if I do this? Bring this light in? Is it too hard? Is it too soft? Is this going to work? So there's just a million different things that you're constantly thinking of. And there isn't really a right or wrong, I think, in terms of your style. I think it's I do tend to, I guess, lean towards a certain way of lighting in a way. But that's also because the actions that you usually are creating on set kind of dictate that you don't have a lot of lights on the floor. And, you want to give your actors as much freedom as possible in a way. So yes, you can light things always differently, but I tend to find that I like to light with bigger lights from outside where I can, and then use little light sources inside a room or whatever space it is, just to fill in or mold. And a little trick is negative fill goes a long way. Taking light away often shapes and molds your light really, really well, and means you don't have to add more light, because often you've got enough light. It's about utilizing the light that you have, complementing it. And obviously, if you are, blacking everything out and you're starting from a blank piece of paper, well, then you've got carte blanche. You can do whatever you want. But if you're going with something that's kind of a bit of pre-light, you've got a bit of light coming from a window or from a door or something, it's how do you interpret that? How do you make that feel realistic within the shoot? And for me, it's just about complementing what you have and making sure that the lighting feels cinematic, I guess. It's just bandied about so much. I think it's a bit of probably a bit of a silly word, overused word, but you want something to feel moody. You want something to feel, it's got to stir emotions in you. You want something to bring out emotions.
Yeah, cinematic's a good interchangeable word for emotional, I think. Not entirely, but I think, it's everything. People think cinematic just means like big and expensive, and you slap your cinematic filter on it and it's got black bars. Right. It looks a little bit like bluey orangey and that kind of thing.
The old teal and orange is a winner.
Yeah.
People love that.
But yeah, it's also, in order to be cinematic, I think it's got to be emotional.
Yeah, I mean, and it's without banning on about it, it's not what I think is correct. It's just what you feel is right in the moment. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, and really, I think every project deserves its own treatment, so on its own merit. So you pick something because it feels right for that. It's not just a blanket. This will cover everything, and I think that's a good way to look at the project that you're going to have in the future.
Amazing. So on the technical side, I think you mentioned you shoot all sorts of different types of film as well. Obviously, I think you got into that through film school, but I think there's a lot of people that would love to get their hands on being able to shoot film like that, but it's quite an expensive thing to get into. I guess do you have any recommendations on how people could go around shooting that? And I guess what different types have you had experience with?
Yeah, I've worked on all. I've worked on 8mm, 16mm, 35mm. The one thing I haven't worked on is 65mm or IMAX. So I haven't had the opportunity to work on that. But I have worked on all the others, all across the board. And I did a project last year which was a Super 8mm short film competition. And for me, I'd never shot an 8mm before. In South Africa, it was never something, while I was coming out of film school and working on mostly digital projects, I'd load on film and I'd focus pull occasionally on film, but most of the stuff that I was doing was digital because film was really dying, particularly in South Africa. I think all the film labs ended up closing, and the sort of post houses with regards to film and stuff also closed. So it kind of, everything would, if you wanted to shoot on film post sort of, I think it was 2012, you'd have to send your film to London. Or somewhere around there. It was, it was a kind of an end of an era in that regard in the country. So film did die a little bit. It has resurrected a touch, and I think that's as a result of a lot of passionate filmmakers who just do not want to see film die, and I think that's very important. I think film holds something very special. It has an innate grain structure which just you can't 100% replicated on digital. It doesn't matter what plug-in you put in post-production. That's a little bit of a grain or something. You can add a LUT these days, which is really close. You can get Kodak LUT and things like that. You throw it over some ARRI footage and you can finesse that, and it comes close. But there's still something very special about the way colors render on film stock and the way grain comes across. It has its own living, breathing entity. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's really special.
Yeah, I think it's better the art form of it as well. People just really like loading in film.
Yeah.
Not getting to just shoot things 50 times over because they can.
Right.
You've got a couple chances and that's it.
Yeah, I mean that Super 8 film. Well, I'll tell you. Actually, it's a great way for youngsters to get in. Actually, is to shooting film is actually getting into like a Super 8mm competition, because you learn discipline very quickly. The one I was involved in, you had to shoot the entire film on one can of film stock. So, you have to pick. You've got a variety of film stocks. You've got to pick the film stock that works best for your film overall. So you could be shooting day, you could be shooting night, you could be shooting interior, you could be shooting exterior, and you've got to think, how best am I going to go about this and make this feel like it's shot and is a really tight film across the board, and it doesn't feel like you've just slapped things together because you couldn't make it all work. And that was, for me, that was a great experience. I'd never shot 8mm, like I said, and I think for youngsters, if they want to start, 8mm is a great way to, just pick up an old 8mm camera. You can buy them off eBay. If you want to, there's lots going around on the web, just get a couple of film stocks in hand, go shoot some skateboarders if you want to, or go shoot your mates at the coast or whatever it is. There's, lots of little things you can just focus on and just go and film a minute of it. You don't have to do a lot. Get it processed. It does cost a bit of money, but at the end of the day, I think it's a wonderful way to get in. Also, Super 8mm is not as expensive as 16 and 35, so it's a great way for you to start and understand the discipline of film and understand the way film renders. And obviously, 8mm is a lot grainier than 16 and 35. The film structure is a lot looser, so you're never going to get what it looks like shooting Children of Men. So, for example, if you're shooting something like that on whatever 35, or let's say shooting the beach landing scene in Spielberg's classic, they're overcranking, undercranking film stock, and it's a wonderful thing to see. But you're never going to get that same film structure on 8mm. But that's the beauty of it. It's not 8mm is got something very special where it feels like it can be professional, like it feels like it can be amateur, and it's up to you as to how you film it. That then takes it into those different levels. And if you're going to start, I'd say do that. Go buy a cheap camera, or see if you can borrow a mate's 8mm camera and just go cracking. Go film around London. No one, it's just you're shooting in the hand. It's just a little handheld camera, and just pick up some stuff. And there's a company called 1/8mm in London. There's also there's a few others as well, but I know they're pretty good with stuff like that to get your film stock sorted, and they're really professional, really good, and it's not that expensive just to get sort of something of some Super 8mm done. I'd say do that.
Yeah, nice. I think, you said that. I think almost the fact that film has its very defined limits, shooting on film stock, is what pushes, I guess it pushes you to be more creative as an artist and as an individual person, and it kind of brings out more of those aspects rather than shooting digitally. You can alter so many different things, and you can kind of fix things before and after. Whereas with film, like, you get what you get, and it's up to you to make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think importantly on film, if you've shot it, you've shot it. You can't play it back and be like, oh, we got this something wrong. You have to know that you've got it or you don't have it. So if you need, if you feel like you didn't get the take, you've got to go again, but know that eating through more film stock, and you always will be limited on film stock. You're never going to be able to just shoot like you can on cards. So it does boost some discipline upon yourself and the rest of the crew, actually, because the rest of the crew understands they can't just kind of fool around. They can't just kind of sit back and be like, oh, it doesn't matter if one take goes, we've got another take, we'll just get it again. Everyone's got to be really, really focused. I think it was Christopher Nolan actually who came out and said it's one of the reasons why he loved shooting on film, because it made the crew focus on another level. Everyone knows that you've got to capture it on that shot. You've got to get everything right. You've got to get the focus right. You've got to get the lighting right. You've got to get the action right. And you don't have a lot of opportunity for going again. So it really does enhance your craft.
Yeah, there's almost this like unspoken, just a little bit more respect for shooting on film than anything else.
In a way,
I think.
Yeah. In a way, definitely, I think so. Yeah.
Cool. So I guess the other thing I'd like to ask you is, how do you stay on top of all of the new techniques and equipment? Because you've been out of film school now for what, 15 years?
Yeah, I know.
Something like that?
When did I finish? Was it 14 years, I guess, since I finished? Yeah, so a long time. And obviously, I mean, I was already working on film shoots while I was at film school. That was my way of getting on-set experience. I would jump on music videos as a spark or a grip trainee, or I'd go in as a camera trainee or whatever experience I could get on a commercial or a music video is usually what I would do. And then I was shooting corporates on the side, so a camera operator and shoot corporates and learn a bit about lighting and stuff on the side. But it wasn't about it was this or that. It was, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a cinematographer. I wanted to become a DOP. It was really about finding the path that worked. So, I did that for about 9 months, and I started speaking to focus pullers who I was working with on those music videos and commercials, and was like, I'd like to get into focus pulling. I'd like to go through and become a DP, and that, can you give me any tips? Can you give me any advice? Can I watch how you do things? Can I help you out when I'm not busy in another department? And in South Africa, they, I guess, probably a little bit looser on that. They're a little bit more easygoing, maybe, when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think, if you're in the US, for example, you kind of, that's what you're doing on the day. That's kind of, that's what you do. You don't go and help someone on camera if you're in lighting, or you don't go and carry sandbags in another department if so particularly if it's union, obviously. But South Africa was a little bit looser, and it was great. I had some really good focus pullers who gave me some great advice and helped me out. And there was a guy who he was on a horror feature film called Night Drive. It's about a group of people who go on a game drive in South Africa, and things start going quite wrong. And it was a proper sort of psychological horror thing. And a couple of really good friends of mine worked on it, people that I went to film school with as well, who were a few years ahead of me. And this guy was a focus puller, and he left to go and do a whole bunch of commercials in Nigeria. And he put me forward he was like, well, look, I know you haven't got a lot of experience as a focus puller, but you can go in as a camera assistant. And if the DP's happy with you, and, you guys build a relationship, you step up into the focus pulling position. And that's actually what happened. And that was my first big break, working on narrative, working on a feature film, working in the camera department. I was forever grateful for that. And from that, I actually I met a guy called Jonathan De La Cuera, who he was the B camera op on that feature. And we became really, really good mates subsequently, because he saw me working on the other camera. I was camera assisting on and focus pulling on a camera, and he was a B camera op. And he got a job after that he was a DOP on a TV sort of telenovela drama series in South Africa, and they needed a focus puller on one of the cameras. And he was like, listen, I don't know if you're available and if you're keen, but, I'm happy to put you forward and whatever. And I thought, oh, absolutely. My time to jump in and do some long form and get some narrative experience under my belt and get some proper focus pulling. And that was it. I was hooked. And we became really, really good mates afterwards. And we worked on many, many TV series, feature films, music videos, commercials subsequently. So big shout out to Jono, because he helped me a lot with my early career, putting me forward and getting me through camera department and letting me grow.
Amazing. Yeah. So again, I think what you said, it's networking is the key to everything within this industry. Can't really move up, can't do those jobs without putting yourself out there and doing that, getting to know everyone that you're working with. So I think biggest takeaway for people is put yourself out there and talk to as many people as you can, and don't be afraid to, ask questions on set, probably. I think maybe we can talk a little bit about the projects you've done with us in the last couple of months.
Absolutely.
Teralon, we've talked about them on the last podcast, actually, but a couple of big projects, and Toby was our DOP for those, cinematographer. We can start with our the first one that Guy directed with, law firm here in London. And right. You just want to share a little bit of your experience there and what you did for us.
Yeah, that was great. I love that. It was actually the first project which I got the opportunity to work with you guys. And I had actually, I think I'd spoken to Julian a couple of years prior, and we sort of had chatted, and I think he was sort of looking for DOPs in the future, and potentially looking for camera operators and things. And I think I got hold of him. I can't remember actually how, someone on social media, I think, and sort of followed him ever since, and you know, it was great. He just gave me a shout and said, "Listen, I've probably got this project that's coming up. You know, let's meet and let's chat a bit about it." And we did, and it felt right straight away. It was great. It was quite an exciting project to be involved in, and it's kind of a weird one because it sort of lends itself to corporate, but it was definitely more on the high end scale and was being shot in a different way. And you know, I was quite happy to bring myself and my knowledge and stuff, and knowing that Julian is a talented guy himself and knows, you know, he can direct and shoot and things like that, and knowing that, having met Guy subsequently, it was an absolute pleasure working with him as well. He was very professional and knew exactly what he wanted, obviously from writing the script all the way through to post-production. Yeah, it was great to get involved with the guys. I brought my camera team, and we had a good lighting team, which was fantastic. And it was 4 days of filming, I think, in the end. So a good chunk of filming, which is nice because it means you get to know people quite well on set. You know, sometimes you do these one-day shoots and you're in, you're out, and then you might not see them again for 6 months or a couple of years or something. So you know, you may build the relationships, but you kind of, you know, you've gone in and without really having time to settle in and actually get to know the people. So that was great. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, it was definitely nice to have that crew there for the full week. And, you know, they can be long days. Not every day is long, but you know, some days are 10, 12, 14 hours. You never know.
That's a part of the game, unfortunately.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess, what did we shoot on?
Well, yeah, so we shot for them, for the law firm. We shot on Arri, and it was the Mini LF, which is, for those who know, it's very high end, lovely, full frame, beautiful camera, renders skin tone beautifully, and it's sort of the big brother for the Arri Mini, which is Super 35, and we shot with that, which was a lovely camera, and we paired it with some Xi Supreme primes, which are just it's a great set of glass, really, really nice lenses. And the reason why we went with that as a package, having spoken to Guy and to Julian, was because we wanted it to feel really larger than life, and we wanted to really sort of get into the space with the people that we're filming, but we also wanted to make it as cinematic as possible. So we wanted that full frame look. We wanted that slightly wider field of view, but still carrying that same similar depth of field. And it's got other advantages as well. But certainly we wanted that feel and that look, you know, with the people that we're filming. There were obviously some restrictions in the spaces that we were filming as well, so we felt that was just the most appropriate package. And obviously, you know, shooting really high quality. So you know, at the end of the day, it gives you the best possible result that you can really kind of look for, I think. So I was very happy, and we had a great team. You know, we had limitations, obviously, in terms of you know, where you can put lights and what you can do, because you're filming, you know, in a law firm. You've got a lot of restrictions about that, and I think at the end of the day, we did a great job with camera and lighting guys, just to make sure that you know, everything was kind of brought together as a good team, and that goes down to Guy and everyone else that was involved as well. I think you know, it was an absolute pleasure to work with Guy and to try and bring his vision across, and knowing that obviously it's you know, you're always working towards what the client wants. It's not always what you want to achieve. It's, you know, at the end of the day, the client's paying, and whoever that is, so you want to give them the best possible product that they're happy with, and I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day. So you do, you know, it's part of filmmaking. You do make sacrifices along the way. Sometimes you have to concede that not everything is going to be the way you might want things to go, or the way you want it to go. But yeah, I think it was great. You know, we had just to add to that, actually, the idea was to have a lot of movement. So throughout the shoot, we used a Movi Pro, which is, I don't know, for those who don't know, it's basically a very professional gimbal. It's quite powerful and can carry kind of high-end, mini with prime lenses, also small zooms and things, and a great piece of kit. And I had that, on an easy rig sometimes, and sometimes was handheld with it. Just tough on the arms. I wouldn't recommend it for any lengthy period of time. But, I had that with the easy rig. We also used a slider for a couple of shots as well, which is great, just to mix things up a bit. But, always to try and keep the camera moving. And that was the important part of the story. Yeah.
Also tough on the forehead.
It was tough on the forehead. There was a minor thing where, God, I think I'll never live this down. But basically, we were trying to do a shot where I had the Mavi on an easy rig, and I was trying to do a very straight up sort of turning shot. There was a beautiful part of the building which is sort of an atrium, and we wanted sort of to give the POV impression of someone kind of turning around and really taking the whole building in. And I may have pushed it a little far in terms of how much the easy rig could hold on to the movie, and it obviously holding on incredibly tightly. So there was no harm done, other than the movie kind of caught me on the top of the head and may have had a little cut, a little bruised ego afterwards, but nothing that, some plasters and a little bit of water and things can't sort out. And, we carried on filming, and, I was happy to carry on, and I think we got some really great stuff for the rest of the day. It was just unfortunate.
It was quite dramatic when it happened, as far as, we're obviously in a corporate law firm, so we had quite a lot of regulations and things we had to go through.
Yeah, I think I think safety,
just a surface wound.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, safety and security. Well, obviously, you're always kind of wrapped in a lot of tape when it comes to making sure that you're abiding by health and safety and things like that. And especially in this country, I think it's very important. But I think it's a little less tight in South Africa, for example. I don't think there's quite as much regulation when it comes to health and safety and things like that on shoots. But I know they are pushing to be more sort of direct in that manner. I think a lot of crew members, are fighting for that. It was very important. And yeah, obviously, that was, it was my era. If you got to put your hand up sometimes and say, well, I was pushing the rig further than the rig could take it. And at the end of the day, no harm done, other than a bit of a bruised ego and a little mark on the forehead for a few years probably. But
and you got the shot.
I got the shot. We did. We got the shot. The shot was beautiful. It worked out really nicely, and the rest of the shoot was fine. Yeah, no harm done really at the end of the day. But yeah, keep it safe out there, kids.
But yeah, so that was the first shoot we've had. We had that entire crew together for, and I think we all got along so well, and we liked the product and the vibe of everything so much. We brought all of you guys back for another shoot.
Round two.
About a month ago now.
God, time. Yeah, no. Time flies, right? Yeah. So we. So Julian actually gave me a shout as well. He was like, look, we've got this project. Guy's not going to be involved because he's involved in another project at the same time. But Julian was very much involved, and running the show on that. And a really interesting product, a wine decanter for a brand called Eto, which held its own set of challenges. And the reason for that is because the product itself is incredibly reflective and basically acts as a mirror. So to make things more challenging, of course, the idea was to attach the product to the front of the camera and have it move as if the product is being picked up and dropped off by various characters for our different scenes. And of course, that means that we had to come up with a solution that made it look seamless and feel as if it was natural, that the product was being picked up and put down and carried, and you were pouring the wine in a certain manner that it never felt like it was too forced. And I didn't feel like someone was just kind of took the hand away and the Eto would still kind of just
right.
hang it out in midair, because of course that's kind of defeating the illusion a little bit. But in the end, So I mean, that was Julian who came up. We got a great solution with the guys from Eto and folks from Eto. They were great. We had some solutions, and we kind of refined that through a test day, which is very important, because I think when you've got a complicated technical shoot, you can't just kind of sort of make some ideas and then rock up on the day and then just try and make something work, because that's just it will never come across the way you're trying to come across.
Right, especially when Julian had a very clear idea of, he'd storyboarded it out and he knew exactly what he wanted it to look like. So yeah, you had to have that rig done beforehand.
Exactly. And it was but the important thing was we knew what we wanted to do and what we were trying to achieve for the product and for the shoot. And at the end, we made it work. I think the way we ended up attaching it was quite novel. We sort of used a sort of steel paddle and had the product kind of glued on the front, and that would then mount and rig onto the front of the camera. The lens would stay an exact distance from the product, so that the front of the product would always be sharp. And funnily enough, the other challenge was they wanted the majority of the action in the background to also be sharp. And when the product is that close to the lens, it means that you are forced to create a lot more light, because you need to shoot with an f-stop or a t-stop, depending on how you know things. That is a lot deeper. So we're not looking for a shallow depth of field anymore, where often if you're shooting on lenses, you're looking at 2.8 or 4 or something around there. Here we're looking at 16 to 22. And that in itself provided its own challenges, because obviously that meant that everything that I'm seeing in the product and everything that's in the background is in shot, is in focus. And you're constantly having to watch what's in your frame and watch what's in the reflection, and make sure that you're not seeing crew members, you're not seeing lights, you're not seeing equipment, you're not seeing anything that feels like it's out of place. And of course, that was combined with having to move the camera around in a certain manner so that it felt natural throughout the shot. It was a challenging but very fun shoot to be a part of, because it's not something that you get every day. And you can rock up and just put a camera on a tripod and walk away and be like, oh, okay, great, that was a good shoot, great done, well done. But this was something that was really making us think outside the box, and provide its own set of challenges. And I think we sort of overcame. Yeah,
it was a bit different, and something I think not many had really done before. So.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, there was a lot of things there. I don't tend to try and film at f16 and f22. It's just, there's no, the point being is you're trying to hide things on a film shoot. You're trying to make things feel a bit more, I know I'm going to use this term again, but a bit more cinematic. But you want things to feel like it would, like your eye would see. Because of course, if you are looking up close, the background tends to defocus, and vice versa. If you're looking at something in the background, something in the foreground is out of focus. So we want it to feel like when you want normally shoot something like your eye sees. On this occasion, we had a couple of big lights placed outside the room, because obviously we couldn't see the lights in the reflection. We didn't want to see anything. And then you've got to find clever ways of hiding lights and using practical lights like lampshades and lights that are built into the ceiling and things like that. You've got to use things at your disposal, whatever you can, to get the job done.
What are a couple of those things you used to hide yourself?
Well, so that was another thing, of course, because there were times when, as I'm moving with the rig, the camera rig that is, you might potentially see yourself in the reflection based on the way you have to hold the rig. So you might see your hand, you might see your face. So basically I had to cover myself in full black long sleeve sort of shirt, and then put a balaclava type thing on, or a thing that you'd put around your neck, and wrap my head, wrap my face, and just kind of have my eyes kind of poking out a little bit. And
I think you were even wrapping your hands in the black.
I literally had to black gaffer tape around my hands, because I could actually, at times, I could see, I'm not the most tanned individual on the on the planet, unfortunately. But if you can see something that feels out of place, you've got to make sure that obviously that's covered. So whatever discomfort you have to go through at that point, excuse me, I think that's just you've got to do what you've got to do to get the job done and get the shot. And it was a great collaborative effort between the whole crew. We had a great art director, and she helped a lot to bring the world alive a bit. We added some things, we took some things away within the world, we filmed in a kitchen, we filmed in a lounge kind of area, and it was a lovely effort from everyone involved. Yeah, just to make it feel very, very cohesive.
Yeah, and to get it done on the hottest day of the year.
I mean, aside from rap, you can't add more challenges, but you can, because it was the two hottest days of the year basically in the UK. I think it was one day was the hottest day on record. It went beyond 40 degrees Celsius, which provides its own challenges, of course. You're working in a sort of enclosed environment, which very much was acting a bit like a kind of a sort of a greenhouse. You're in a lot of glass are everywhere, and at one point, so for those who know and obviously wouldn't have seen that shoot yet, because I haven't released it yet, but we had to black out during the day. We had to black the whole part of the house out, which means, of course, that the sun is blazing through and soaking up the heat with massive amounts of black cloth and tarpaulin and all that kind of stuff that's covering windows and doors and things, and you're just creating. Well, you're sort of creating your own hotbox, really. So, on a day which is 40 degrees Celsius and you're wrapping yourself in long sleeve and balaclavas and everything else, of course, you're pushing yourself kind of to the limit when it comes to that kind of stuff. But, we think we ended up sort of eating our way through a lot of ice creams. We drank our way through a lot of water, and, you guys are great to work with in terms of, just make sure the crew was always well looked after. I don't think there was any hassles with that. And, everyone kind of did what they could. I think there was definitely a struggle for a few crew members. I think the heat is a difficult thing. I think, in the UK, we're not used to it.
You're not used to it at all. Not that intense.
Not that intense. And, when it's fine if people say, 40 degrees, we have that elsewhere around the world. Of course you do. Got way hotter. But you don't have that when you're sort of working in a very enclosed, difficult, stressful, creative environment. It's fine if you're sitting on a beach and you've got an umbrella over you and you're drinking cocktails. It sounds great. You'll probably be all right. But when you different environment in a house that's not built for heat, it's a different ball game. But I think again, we all knew that was going to happen. I think everyone was very much on board, understood how the shoot was going to go, what we needed to do to get it done.
Yeah, I think we were pretty prepared for it to be that hot. We knew it was going to happen for a good week beforehand.
I think mentally, you just knowing that I'm going to have to wrap myself up in black everywhere and then cover myself up and run around. But that was fine, and I think at the end of the day, I think client was happy. I think director was happy. Julian, who was pulling that off, again, we knew exactly what we wanted. And I think that's so important. People underestimate quite how important pre-production is. And that should be put through time and time again. The more you put in beforehand, the less you have to put in on the day of filming, and the less you have to put in and try and save and edit. And that is very important, because obviously you're always going to find that there's issues that you're going to come across. There's going to be challenges and problems you're going to have to solve while you're filming that you probably didn't even come across or didn't think of in pre-production. But the more prepared you are, the less of those variables you're going to have. So that's it's a very important thing to have. And with projects like this, or the one that we did with the law firm as well, there was a great amount of pre-production that went into it, and a good understanding of what it was that the client wanted and that what we wanted to get done. And at the end of the day, that's how you get a better product.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the more effort you put into pre-production, the more time and effort you spend on that, and the more more attention you pay to the details in there, the easier it is on the day. And definitely the easier it is in post-production as well too. You can't always fix everything. You like to think you can. You'd be like, I'll just fix it in post, but it's not always the case. So the more prepared you are for that, the easier it is on everyone.
Yeah, I wouldn't. You know, everyone's like, oh, don't worry about it, we'll fix it in post. You know, it's an old age. It's a great saying, except for editors, they hate it, obviously, or anyone involved in post production. But yeah, I mean, you know, you have a lot less headaches if you plan accordingly up front, and it is very important. I mean, I think that goes with anything in life, depending on what industry you're in, but especially in film industry, you know, you can't take anything to chance. You basically rock up on a film shoot, and you are problem solving from the moment you walk onto set to the moment you wrap up. It's 100 things that's going on at the same time, and like I said before, you know, you're constantly thinking of, how is the lighting going? Is the camera doing the right thing? Is this happening? You know, have we backed up the footage? What's happening with the weather? Because of course, you know, when we were filming in London for the law firm, you know, we had weather problems as well. We had, you know, you're fighting rain, so you could be outside. You know, you might not have the light that you were looking for on the day that you did a location recce, and you've now got to try and figure that out, you know, while that's happening. So it's all very well that you plan ahead, thinking, okay, well, you know, we'll lower the blinds because we know the sun's going to be that direction, but you don't necessarily think, oh well, there's not going to be sun, for example. But of course, in London, that's quite a common thing. So it's always in the back of your head with problems like that. But you know, it is fundamentally, it's very important to know that you know, you're going to rock up and you don't stop solving problems until you're finished.
Right. No, I think that project turned out really well so far. We don't have a finished product done yet. We've got, you know, just the basic timeline put together, but it looks like it's gonna turn out to be a really cool project.
Is this the wine decanter?
This is the wine decanter. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Nice. It'll be cool. I think we're still a couple of weeks away from having that finished product done, but yeah, we'll get it out there as soon as we can. Nice. I think we should probably going over an hour now, so probably wrap up this episode, I think. And yeah, big thank you to Toby for coming on this episode and making the trip down here. You don't live in London, do you?
I don't. I did, used to. I live in Surrey now. But you know, it's close enough. It's not too bad. Family. yeah. Once you have a family, you tend to think of other things as potentially more important. But no, it was an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you very much for having me. Really enjoyed it. I hope I didn't kind of you know, waffle on too much. I think it's really nice to know that you can impart knowledge and potentially help other people find their way in the industry as well. So hopefully there's a lot to take away.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, just to sum up, I think, you know, there's always more than one way to do things within this industry. But I think the biggest thing you can do is, you know, just put yourself out there and network, and just make sure you're always talking to people and trying to move up, I guess, if that's your goal.
I mean, if it's not your goal, what are you doing?
So that's it for this episode of the Teralon Talks podcast. You can find us on our YouTube channel. The full video version will be on there, but also streaming on all the major platforms, Spotify, podcasts, all of those. And yeah, we will see you on the next episode next month.